You are listening to Healthy Paint Talk with Bill and Darryl. Healthy Paint Talk is brought to you exclusively by HealthyPainting.com and ExpectationRestoration.com. Each episode invites you into the slightly unorthodox world of Bill Daly and Darryl Whalen, two experts in the world of healthy and environmentally conscious painting, coating, and finishing. Join us each week for our experiential conversations, educational information, and answers to your questions about products, practices, and methodologies that make a difference to us all. Find us on the web at healthyhomecast.com. And now, your co-hosts, Bill Daly and Darryl Whalen.
Okay, welcome to episode 5 of Healthy Paint Talk with Bill and Darryl. Healthy Paint Talk is part of the Healthy Homecast Network and is brought to you exclusively by HealthyPainting.com and ExpectationRestoration.com. I'm Darryl Whalen, along with our star and co-host, Mr. Bill Daly. Hello, Bill.
How are you doing?
Okay. And our audio engineer, Mr. Randy Parcel. Hello, Randy.
Hey-yo.
Hey-yo. So it's been a little while since...
am I supposed to say stick a brush in it sometime during
That's
this?
at the end.
Oh, at the end.
That's our outro. You can say it whenever you want, by the way. It'll lose its luster, though. Luster, no painting pun intended, if we just say it all over the place. So it's been a while, and we got through the holidays and our Puget Sound storms here the last few weeks, and we're back on track. And as we've further developed our format since the last episode, we would like to tell all of those who are listening now that we can be contacted with any questions, comments, or ideas at our own official show email, which is info@healthypainttalk.com. Or you can call us at 206-650-4587. And our website for Healthy Paint Talk is now up and can be accessed exclusively at www.healthypainttalk.com. I don't think you still have to say the www, though, do you? We have a brief description of the show format posted there with the other episodes, and it can be found near the top on the right-hand side. So let's just get into it.
This is What's Been Happening.
So please tell us what's been happening with Mr. Bill Daly.
Well, I have some very disturbing news and I think some pretty important information to give you guys. I got a telephone call this morning at 10 o'clock having to do with something that occurred back in 1976 and that I am going to have to go to court to talk about. And this has to do with a thing called mesothelioma, which is created from this disturbance of asbestos. In that particular year, I was responsible for supplying materials to several companies that could have possibly contained asbestos.
You bastard.
That's right, me bastard. And what happened...
Nobody knew that at the time, though, did they?
No, it was perfectly legal at the time. But a fellow who was 87 years old, 3 years ago, died. And 2 months prior to his death, he was diagnosed with mesothelioma. And then his children and grandchildren one day were watching television, and a lawyer comes on and says, if you've been affected by mesothelioma, contact us. We will take care of the bad guys. He listed the places where he shopped. My old retail store he shopped at. He shopped at another lumber yard that's local here, a hardware chain, and a paint chain. And all of us are being sued for roughly $3 million because we may have possibly caused the death of their grandfather and father. Now, does that sound to you like a worthwhile suit to go after?
Well, I got some questions. I mean, I don't really know. I can't really take a stance on it. We haven't talked about this before. That's interesting.
All I'm getting at is the fact this goes back so many years. Some people probably weren't even born when this occurred.
Yeah.
And it was legal when it was being done, and now lawyers are blaming virtually anybody for anything. And so you have to be. We're talking about green products right now. This is our main thrust.
Well, 35 years ago, it wasn't even a thought, and the stuff that was not only, and I don't really know what this particular product is, but the stuff that was in our food and in our gardens and in our garages and the stuff that we were putting on our lawns.
In this case, it was a spackling paste and caulking compound.
Oh yeah, I don't know. That sounds a little, but I don't really know. I mean, what was the guy doing? Bathing in it, or drinking it, or
He was
inhaling it?
a handyman, and so he had his hands in it frequently. I guess when I pass on, I will have to tell my kids that when I was 14 years old, I went downstairs to our paint store, and I put my hands directly into white lead, which came in a roughly 3-gallon container, and I had to stick my hands down in it and massage the lead to get it to break up into the container, and I wore nothing on my hands.
Oh my God.
And then when my hand came out, I was told to wash my hands with paint thinner.
That sounds delightful.
And we all did it. That was our initiation in the paint industry. But our real hope is that we won't have to go through this again, because if we truly are producing green products, then we don't have that to deal with. And I've got in front of me right now it's called A Brief History of Varnish. Now, when do you think varnish was invented?
Well, we talked about that on the show before. It was invented like at the beginning of time, practically.
We don't really know when.
Yeah.
They're
So
talking
that was back in like the 50s, right?
Yeah, but when the world was in black and white.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know when the world turned color. I think it was
That was 1939. Oh, okay. I was going to say it was like 40 or 50. Yeah.
No, 1939. That's when Dorothy went to the land of Oz.
Oh, okay. There you go.
And somebody got gone by the wind. And so
Okay.
those are all true stories. And so in this article, they're talking about the 9th century, the 11th century, and the 18th century. Now, things really got to cooking in the 18th century. They had got things, I'm going to kind of use a pun here, boiled down to a fine art.
Mm.
And they talk about the products that go into making a varnish. Well, China wood oil is one of the main ingredients, and that in our world lifetime is called tung oil.
Oh, tung oil. Yeah, I think I've used that before.
And we merely add dryers to that product, and dryers are things that make the product evaporate rapidly. And those are pretty kind of dangerous, but we have to add them. And we might add a little bit of solvent too, make it go on easier. But that basically is a varnish. Now, over the years, we have developed different methods of making varnish. We've developed synthetic products to go in. We have really kind of gone a long ways from what it originally was intended to do, but the new products are doing exactly what the old products did.
So are they basically some form of oil?
In almost all cases.
Yeah. Is it generally always an organic oil, or?
Well, we only had organic oils up until a certain date.
Yeah.
And so when we found out that we could
Especially in like the 1st century.
There's the automobiles back in the 1st century were just horrible.
The automobiles?
Yeah, so nobody drove them.
Yeah.
And there were no gas stations.
They were just a wheel and a stick.
That was it.
A rock and a stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An occasional horse would wander into the scene. But one of the true things that has happened, we have developed the water-based finishes. And everybody thinks, oh, water-based, they're all safe. Well, that is not true. Almost all water-based coatings are derived from, are you ready for this? Petroleum products.
Yeah. Even the green and eco paints, most of them out there.
Even the green and eco paints.
Yeah.
And there are very few that are not derived from that.
Yeah,
but
well, that's changing.
It's changing.
Yeah.
So that's why, for example, Vermont Natural Coatings, they're basing their product on milk and cheese whey byproducts. Boy, what a notion. That's not new even. Hell, we were using milk to paint things as long as varnish was out there. So we're coming a long way. But be sure when you're doing any of these products that are green or supposedly green, is get the MSDS sheet, which is supposed to come with the product, read up on it, and generally you will find the manufacturer will lie through their teeth as to what the product's made from. Because as a manufacturer myself, I don't want some people to know what I have in my product. Not from a standpoint that you're going to drink it, but from a standpoint that another manufacturer might say, hey, I should have thought of that. So we're kind of sneaky in a way.
But it's not a matter of putting something in there unhealthy. It's just a matter of having actually a really good ingredient, but you want a proprietary. You want to like.
Correct. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons that you would not tell someone exactly what's in your product.
Yeah.
We can tell people what is poisonous in the product, but we don't have to tell people what is not poisonous in the product.
Well, and a lot of times, if you have to be on a, you were talking about the legal stuff a little bit earlier. I would think on a legal issue that you have to be careful about letting out your ingredients and stuff, because if people formulate it incorrectly, there can be a healthy, safe way to do something. But if it's mixed together disproportionately, amounts and even qualities of particular ingredients, then you can take something that is relatively health and safety and turn it into something that's very much not so. Is there any truth to that?
Oh, absolutely. Did you watch any of the presidential debates?
Back in like 30 years ago, I did.
I'm talking about the recent ones.
No, I don't watch that stuff.
Well, you should really watch those debates, because they're giving us information that we don't really understand or need, and we're arguing about the stuff that makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
So when you're manufacturing a product, that's kind of what we do. There's a speak that we go through that disguises what we're really trying to say. And I think that's really too bad. But we've gotten to that point in our society that that's the way it is.
Yeah, well, I'm going to try to refrain from being too political, but...
Well, let's not be political. Let's talk about the pill ads on TV. Here's a new pill for you. All you have to do is take this pill and you'll feel better right away. Oh, by the way, some of the side effects are death, diarrhea in front of your friends, extremely bad breath, and unable to comb your hair. But, you're going to be free of the other problem you have.
Yeah.
And they put on beautiful music when they're discussing the death part. Then they just sort of gloss over it. And they would never come out on TV and say, hey, guess what, folks? We got a product here that'll probably kill you. But you know what? It's just how they talk about it.
There's nothing like a blast of uncontrolled diarrhea to brighten up your sore ankle.
Oh, we've all enjoyed it, especially when on a flight someplace.
Yeah, some of the lists of things that are potentially side effects are twice as long as the thing that is supposed to potentially do for you.
Yep, that's weird.
Well, if you exercise and you drink lots of water and you eat right, you're likely to be a lot healthier and not need any of that stuff. So what else is going on? It's been a while since we talked.
Well, business is kind of slow, but I think the new year is starting out kind of with a kick in the pants, and hopefully we'll see a really good year this year.
By the way, is a kick in the pants a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not exactly sure.
If you took this one particular pill, the kick in the pants is not a good thing. However, the blue pill, it's okay.
It depends on who's kicking and what part of the pants they're landing on.
Correct.
Right? So, have you remedied anything this past week? Gotten any phone calls or anything? It's been longer than a week since we chatted, but...
Oh, I've gotten phone calls like crazy.
How about anything you remedied? Anything big?
Almost all the questions that I get asked are in regards to how something works. There's a company out there called Modern Masters. Now, you'll get a kick out of this. They're a company that's been around for a long time. You see them in virtually lots of paint stores. And they were purchased recently by a company called Rust-Oleum. And now their business quadrupled.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Because Rust-Oleum is in so many stores. And the rush of business that hit them right off the bat, they could hardly take care of. But there have been very few, if any, reorders. So now these products are languishing on the shelf, just taking up space. But they do have one huge customer that's called Walt Disney. So Walt Disney Studios wants to have a product that will stand up outside, exterior, be metallic, and the kids can eat it and chomp on it and whatnot. But here's the rub. It has to be virtually zero VOC, which Modern Masters never has been. They all have always been high in VOC. And it has to work equally well here in California, Washington, and Oregon, and also in China, where the product will be applied by sable brush rather than spray. Now, that's a pretty tall order. So I got to looking at it, and we did solve the problem, but it's going to take a lot of coats of relative clear material with some of the pigment in, and they don't know whether that's going to be something that Walt Disney can even afford to do. So, enter Ford Motor Company. I don't know if you've, I don't know how many of you out there who are listening have a Ford F-150 truck.
I've had several.
Okay. What year was it?
Oh, boy, I had them 70s, 80s.
Let's go to...
I had one 70. I had a 1970, I think.
Okay.
Probably 70, 78. Those are two of them I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, so let's go to year 2012.
How long has this Ford F-150 been around?
I understand that President Washington, before he was president, actually went across...
George Washington?
George Washington went across the Potomac in an F-150. They today depict it as a boat, but we all know it was an F-150.
Have you ever been to Forks, Washington? It's pretty much mandatory at birth you get
an F-150.
An F-150.
Well, I have been in Vermont, and you have to have an F-150 and or a Subaru, or you are not invited to the human race.
There you go.
And you must drink while you drive. This is really mandatory.
It's mandatory. Yeah. That was like that where I grew up from. So what were we talking about?
I don't know, drinking and driving, I think.
No, but we were talking about something.
Oh,
about
yeah, F-150s.
Well, the Ford...
Ford came to the rescue.
Yeah.
And what they did, if you go by a 2012 Ford, has a huge chrome grille on it, which is not chrome. It's plastic.
It used to be chrome.
It looks just like chrome, but it's now plastic. And they do this for two reasons. Number one, to think that you're getting chrome, to save tremendous amount of weight on the car. Just by replacing the chrome with plastic, they have saved 2 miles to the gallon on that vehicle. That's a lot.
That adds up because those things don't get the best mileage to start with.
No. And so they can make statements like, we have got really good fuel economy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't technology necessarily of the engine, but it was other things.
Yeah.
So Ford Motor Company is going to supply the coating for these things that is on plastic. And then somebody talked some sense into Walt Disney that you can't have somebody in China with no education painting this stuff on. You have to have sophisticated equipment to do it.
Yeah.
So just because somebody asks you to do something in a particular way does not mean that you have to follow always those rules. You need to come back in many cases with a suggestion of how it could be best done.
Great. So have you run into anybody new or run into anybody from your past recently?
Well, I think, no, not really. I have learned a new trick, and that's sending email, and that's opened up a whole new life for me.
Sweet.
And
Bill's got email going. I love it.
Well, I think I told you that I was trying to hook up the Dragon system so I could do this, and I just got frustrated because I couldn't use the Dragon system, so I am now pounding the emails out with 2 fingers rather than 1. And it's a little slower than the Dragon system, but it gets done.
Sweet. Yeah, I was actually trying to look up the mileage here. Oh yeah, the Ford F-150 gets 17 miles to the gallon in the city.
Going downhill.
That's horrendous. That's like so heartbreakingly bad. So great. Well, anything else?
Well, yeah, my Lincoln, by the way, gets 17 miles to the gallon in the city and 24 on the highway, unless you put your foot in the gas.
Yeah, actually, not to tread on that territory too much, but we just, as far as what's going on with myself, is we just tore down one of those sparkly textured ceilings just last week, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
We're getting ready to go down to Guaymas Island next Thursday. We're going to stay down there for like 5 days and do the interior on a house down there. So I'm pretty excited about that.
So do Guaymases live on this island, or how do they get
I don't
the name?
even know what a Guaymas is.
I think they're small creatures, aren't they?
They could very well be. I
think they're 3-legged dogs.
So besides that, I've been working on the YouTube channels and the podcasts and everything. And I met with a guy today, and we're going over. He's working for a cottage company, and they're a cottage construction company, and they're putting together these packages and these 5 like model cottage homes. And we're putting some prices together and stuff on interior and exterior painting and everything. So that was pretty cool. We actually interviewed them on the other show, the Greeners Review shows, where you and I met.
We ought to have them get a hold of my company. We can give them some cottage cheese.
Okay.
Here is the topic of the week.
So we got our first letter Chris, a guy named Chris, and he says, "Hi, you guys. Still making new episodes of the show. I just found the show a couple days ago, and I like it a lot. It's great to hear actual experts." I don't know about that, but just sort of talking about what interests them. That part's definitely true. But he had some questions, and I thought that we would tackle them maybe one a week. And I also thought that, in the near future here, as we get into the new year, that we get some experts on some of these and other things that we got going on, and some of the other topics in that people submit. So I thought this week we'd get into a little bit. We get into indoor air quality. He wanted to know about indoor air quality and the effect that different paints and coatings have on it. So what is indoor air quality?
Well, it depends on what room you're in, and if you have passed gas recently in one of those rooms, that's indoor air quality. But what he's talking about basically is what is off-gassing from the coatings or the materials that are there. And for a good example is the fact that carpet is greatly suspect for bad particles. But they never mention the pad, which is just absolutely dangerous. So some of these particles can actually break off, and you can consume them by breathing, and they can actually coat your lung. You might get lightheaded, you might get headaches, but this can be pretty serious because people they get home, they feel safe, because home is a safe place to be.
Supposed to be.
Supposed to be. So now, if you really take a good look at things, they're wanting you to really, really seal your house up. Let's make sure there's no air that gets in or no air that gets out. And you really need to have air flowing through where you are. And the more airflow you have, the better off you are. And
we've got episodes about all this stuff on Green Reviews, by the way. Oh, yeah, we had Dan Morris.
Yep.
Do you know Dan?
I do. And you can get people to come out to your house and actually measure what the contaminants are in your house.
And we've had them on the show, too,
And
the BioHealthy Homes.
You may not want to go back in your house.
It's supposed to be potentially 1,000 times more polluted on the inside of your house as it is on the outdoors, potentially.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah. So, for the sake of paintings and coatings, how does the indoor air quality affected by those?
Well, after the paint coatings are technically dry for approximately 7 days, there is almost nothing that's going to be affecting you. It's basically when you're applying the product itself and the wet fumes or the volatile bad fumes are coming off. And I don't know if any of you have had a floor refinished in your house, but one of the common products is Swedish finish.
Ooh.
And they want you to move out of the house when they're applying it because it is so deadly. And so there are a number of things, but most of all, the things don't appear to be dangerous are probably the most dangerous. And I'll tell you what a couple of those things are. Those are the perfumes that you get from the Glade company that you plug in, and they make your house smell good by supplying you with nice gassy oils.
Yeah.
And some of those things can be just really, in a concentrated form, very bad for you.
Yeah. I had heard that certain paints, I don't know about particular brands or anything, but I've heard that certain paints that aren't very friendly can off-gas for quite a long time.
Now, mostly you're going to be smelling in today's paints a very common product called ammonia, which is a relatively cheap solvent, and that's really kind of hard to be around.
Yeah. Is the
ammonia. Your eyes burn, you get itches all over you. It's really not killing you, but it's not doing you much good at the same time.
What about you're saying there is no long-term off-gassing? Even though you can't smell it or can't see it, there's potentially some from some paints, or you're saying no?
If you were to paint the house, let's say in the summertime, and you were to use odorless paint, 0 VOC, you can paint the house during the day, leave the door open for maybe just a half a day, and you will not know that the house has been painted.
Yeah.
If you were to use really smelly oil-based paints and whatnot, you need to let the house air out about 4 days, and you won't smell it, and you won't be affected by it. But there are actual tests that you can see the fumes coming off of the paint or the product with a certain light. And I'm sure you've all been out in the desert and looked off into the future, and you can see the waves of heat that are going up in front of you. That's kind of what the chemicals that are coming off the coatings will look like. You'll see waves of them.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm not totally sure about that one, but we can definitely touch on that again in the near future. Hopefully that somewhat answered the guy's question. Obviously, that's the type of topic and the type of subject that you can do 2 whole shows on.
Oh, and the other thing that you can do, by the way, you could have 3 people sitting here, and you'll get 3 different answers, and they may all be correct. So.
And people will, and if you had 3 different people in the same room, you would have all 3 of those people would be affected differently. Anyhow, so we're going to take a break here, and we're going to get right back into more of Healthy Paint Talk. We're here episode 5, and we'll see you in a minute.
You're listening to Healthy Paint Talk.
Okay, we're back, and you're here with Healthy Paint Talk with Bill and Darryl, episode 5.
And now, is this product really green and safe?
We had, in the beginning, we were talking about some issues that were brought up from 3.5 decades ago, about some typical products that were likely sold in pretty much every store on the planet, and we also, as we got into our conversation, we talked about all the changes and the alternatives. Well, not all of them, obviously, but many of them, and how things have changing. And we're here talking about, in general, on our show, about all the alternatives and the options that are much more safe and healthy and responsible for ourselves and all the creatures that we share the planet with. And we're going to talk about spackling. So I have a product here called Crawford's Light-Bodied Vinyl Spackling Paste.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, by the way, we're not being endorsed or sponsored or advertised or anything by any of these products. These are products that that I know personally as a painting contractor are in many stores, and this particular product is being a painting contractor. Spackling is something that I use pretty much on a regular basis, and this one says that it's non-toxic when used as directed, hyperallergenic to the majority of the population. I think that's new text on there from what I've seen.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, because I don't remember that part.
And by the way, just to give you some information, when spackling compounds were asked to get rid of the asbestos that was in them, the asbestos was used as a binder in the product, a thickener, and it was also used to help the product spread and not crumble and go away. So the asbestos did have it had a reason to be there. It wasn't just arbitrary, oh, let's kill a bunch of people. That's not what they did. So in the interim time, when they had basically 2 years to get rid of all of the asbestos that was in the product, and one of the chemists came up with a brilliant idea, and we all kind of went for it. He said, you know how the new spackle is really hard to flow out? Because when you put your putty knife in it, you want your putty knife to ride smoothly. We solved it. We put mercury in the spackle.
Swell.
So they replaced asbestos with mercury.
Which may be worse.
Well, twice as bad.
Yeah.
And somebody sort of rang the bell and said, you really shouldn't do that. And so now they're using things that are called glycols, which are much better for you. And I think, Darryl, if you read the analysis of what's in that container, what does it mention?
Well, I just wanted to read one thing, and then I'll hand you the can. It says contains no mercury, tin, formaldehyde, asbestos, no detectable amounts of benzene, naphthalene, or added silica.
Gee, that sounds like somebody we certainly wouldn't want to take to a bar. So, well, they just basically listed all of the things that were in the product prior.
In all of the products.
Almost all of the products.
Yeah.
And benzene. Benzene is, if you ever put shoe polish on, if you go and you bought a Kiwi shoe polish, it's 1965. You open the container and you can smell it, and if the stuff dries out, you can hold a match to it, remelt it, and that's great. Then you can breathe in this nitrobenzene that comes off of the unit, because that's one of the ingredients. So the shoe polish can kill you. My God, what?
Yeah, but you'll have the best looking shoes in the cemetery. Isn't that the expression?
So
do you know anything about this product?
Quite a bit.
So what do you know about it?
Well, you know, they just basically gave away the farm by telling us what they didn't put in it.
Yeah.
So they use a polyvinyl acetate, which is like when you pick up a product that is sweetened with corn syrup. The polyvinyl acetate is also called PVA. You go to the paint store and say, you got to put this PVA primer on. 90% of the people that put PVA primer on don't know what PVA means.
Yeah.
It means polyvinyl acetate.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, and
it's not PVA primer isn't very good. It's just basically used for like drywall and stuff, isn't it?
yeah, and they also have added calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is what is inside of your gypsum board.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, makes a very nice explosion when confronted with water and a spark.
Wow.
So if you ever have gone to a fireworks stand, and you can buy these cannons, and they're called bang sight cannons. It's calcium carbonate that is in a tube that you put into the cannon that has water in it. It off-gases, you light it, and it makes a very nice report. So there's a couple of interesting things that are in this.
Is it healthier than the old school standard?
Well, if you're going to eat this, be sure that you don't use sugar, use the sugar supplement, okay, and it'll make it taste better. You can actually get it down. I think you may have some stomach irritation for some time. I think it's pretty safe.
I think that's supposed to be one of the safer ones out on the market right now, isn't it? The Crawfords, or you're not sure?
They're all about the same.
They're all about the same?
Yeah.
They just tout it a little bit more.
Well, you got to, if Crawford's been around for years, it's just an old brand.
Is there a better alternative than this one that you know of?
Yeah, have Darryl come out and put the spackle in the hole, and you just don't sit back and watch him. That's your better.
I'm talking about the product, though.
I don't think there's that much. I think they're all...
It's about as safe as you could get and still have it perform the function that it's meant to perform.
Absolutely.
Okay, gotcha. Great. Well, that's our product of the week. Anyhow.
Here is We've Got the Answers.
Okay, well,
what about that question you were going to ask about cleaning your brush out in the sink?
Did we do that one yet? Okay, well, let's do that one.
Well, you already knew it.
Well, yeah.
So,
I have the ability to read Randy's mind, which has been very concerning to me. I need to talk to you after the show.
You got good memory. You got good memory, too, because I forgot about that. But the question was, is it okay to wash out your paintbrush in the sink after you're done painting?
It's absolutely not.
It's absolutely not okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
This is a kind of a funny thing. People are very concerned about polluting the water that we don't have a whole lot of, and there's not going to be any new water put on the face of this earth unless we really discover a water well on Mars, which we're going to have a hard time getting it back here because the straw is going to be somewhat thousands of miles long.
It'll be the Mars pipeline.
Mars pipeline. So if we were to dump a gallon of latex paint off of the bow of my boat into Lake Union and a gallon of oil-based varnish on the other side, which one would pollute the most, Randy?
Varnish, I think.
No, because it is lighter than water. It will float on the top, and you can skim it off.
Wow.
The latex varnish, however, or the water-based varnish, will mix per part per million virtually instantly, and you cannot skim it out of the water. So when you wash your brush out in the sink, with your latex paintbrush out in the sink, you're really committing pollution to the water. So our suggestion is very much the following, that you have a 5-gallon container with fresh water in it, clean your tools, rinse your tools out in that 5-gallon container, thus reducing a large amount of the contaminants that would go down the sink. And then, and only then, after you have that brush virtually 99% clean, rinse it out under the faucet with some soap.
Yeah, what we do is we take a hose to every job, and we clean out all our stuff in the middle of the yard, because I've been told like years ago that it's better to have it go down into the soil.
The soil filters it.
The soil filters it, and plus we obviously, being healthy painting, are as mindful as possible about getting the right kind of materials and stuff, which obviously aren't perfect. But putting them into the water, into the sink automatically is not the right thing to do.
There used to be a product that you could hook up to your hose bib and to clean out your rollers. You put the roller into this unit. And
I still have one of those from like 20 years ago or so.
And it turns out they were illegal.
Why is that?
For that very reason I was just talking about, that all the stuff goes into the ground. And so now you can't find them on the market today.
Which is crazy, because that's actually the right way to do it. And, well, it's a crazy world.
It is a crazy world.
They figure out things, many, many big things, sometimes way too late. Well, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
That's a good
Considering it was my question to begin with, I don't see why you have anything to do with it.
No, that was Randy's question last time. Because your question's coming up.
Oh.
And now, what's up with that?
So this is our next segment. What's up with that? So, Bill, it's up to you. What do you have for our silly question of the week?
Why am I getting sued?
That sounds, that may be a good question. It may be a silly question. I can't really make a determination of that right off. But that may not be silly enough for us right now.
No, okay, I'll give you the silly question. How many do you think that they put bubbles in the varnish container before they send you home with it?
I don't think that they do that. But it's caused by stirring it up or shaking it up.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
In fact, I would be giving a demonstration to a bunch of people who would actually know better than this. And I would put the can of varnish on the shaker that was standing right here next to me. And then I'd shake it for about 3 minutes, take the can off, put it down, and open it. And you look in there, you see a whole bunch of little bubbles. That's because of the air that is in the top of the can.
Oh, it's that little space of air that's...
Yeah, the manufacturers don't put the bubbles in the can. They put just liquid.
I don't think that they do that.
So then I will put my brush into that container, and I will apply it to a piece of wood, and there will be no bubble that is present. And people say, how in the hell did you do that? So I will hold up my brush, and I will tell you two things. The design of the paintbrush hasn't changed much in 3,000 years. The Chinese put it together, and I know we don't like to buy products from China, but this happens to be one of the really great products that China...
So does the brush itself cut the bubbles?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
And if you look at the brush, the bristles are looped over a wooden peg that goes into what we call the ferrule of the brush, thus creating what we call a gas tank. That's an open airspace. Now, when you buy a brush, you need to clean the brush before you even use it. And the reason why is because they use hairspray to make the brush look pretty when it's on the shelf.
Aye, aye, aye.
And so if you were to take the paintbrush into a small room and put on a blue light and just take your finger and run through the bristles, you will see major amounts of stuff come out of that brush. And by the way, that would transfer to your project when you first applied the product. So now you've got little flecks of stuff and bubbles. This is really, I love this first coat because you just didn't do a good job at all. Well, it really wasn't your fault. If you would have cleaned the brush first, you'd have gotten rid of those items. And the next thing is, when you put your brush into the varnish, never put it into the can, pour it into a separate container. And if you were to dip your brush up to the hilt, that means right up to the top, and then depress the brush, you will see bubbles coming out of the brush. That's the air that's trapped inside the brush itself. And the air is also trapped on the bristles. Let it soak for approximately 5 minutes. Take the brush out, take the excess off the outside edge of the brush, and hold the brush up, and it should not drip. If it drips, you have got a cheap brush. Put that thing down, throw it away, go to the store, get a nice pretty brush, and you know the rest of a good brush makes the job go so much better, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, a good painter loves their brush.
It's not even a brush, it's a tool.
Yeah.
My father, before he died, and he died when I was 11 years old, he said, son, I want you to take this tool. And I looked at it, I said, that's a paintbrush. He said, no, that's a tool. And he reached in his valise and picked out a real cheap brush. He said, that's a paintbrush. And I didn't understand what he said until I got a little farther into the paint industry. Then suddenly it dawned on me. But anyway, if you soak your brush and you start in, you won't get bubbles, and you will not get those little pock marks that you see from the dirt on the brush, and you'll have a wonderful time. And you can go a heck of a long ways with that first brushful in comparison to just dipping in every 2 seconds.
And don't you always stir the can instead of having it shaken up?
No, I shake it.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't matter. Okay.
If you stir it, you're never going to get the flighting agent to disperse evenly.
You kind of like broke the rules on that one, because that really wasn't a silly question. That was a very good question, and
we laughed on our way through it, so that made it silly.
Yeah. So is there anything else, guys? Anything else, Bill?
No, I think we're okay.
Okay, well, that's a wrap then. You've been listening to episode 5 of Healthy Paint Talk with Bill and Darryl. Be sure to email us at info@healthypainttalk.com or call 206-650-4587. We would love to hear your ideas for topic of the week or product of the week, or your general questions about anything related to painting, coating, or finishes, as well as any idea for a real silly question of the week. If all goes as planned, you will be able to check back next week for episode 6. Music on our show is provided by tinhuey.com, the Bilinda Butchers.tumblr.com, and jdhobson.com, and you'll see their information posted with our episodes. Green Reviews is, I put Green Reviews. It's actually Healthy Paint Talk. Healthy Paint Talk is part of the Healthy Homecast Network, which Green Reviews happens to be a part of as well. Dug myself out of that one. So please go check out the other like-minded podcasts and businesses over at healthyhomecast.com. Until next week, this has been Bill, Randy, and Darryl with Healthy Paint Talk. Take it out for us, Mr. Daly.
Go stick a brush in it.
Thank you for listening to Healthy Paint Talk with Bill Daly and Darryl Whalen. Healthy Paint Talk is brought to you by healthypainting.com and expectationrestoration.com. Your feedback is important. Please feel free to contact us with any comments, questions, or suggestions pertaining to either information in past episodes or potential content for upcoming episodes of Healthy Paint Talk. You can call us at 206-650-4587 or send a direct email to info@healthyhomecast.com. Be sure to check back often. New episodes coming soon.
I give an inch